Okay. There we go. Oh, thank you so much for your patience, and welcome in, Raiders from Megan's stream. This is my first show of the Transgender show, my first episode. Each week I'll be interviewing someone from the transgender community and sharing my story and answering some questions at the end. My one rule for my guest is that they cannot watch the chat live. So if you have any questions for them, go ahead and put them in there, but Maddison will not be able to see them. It'll just be me. And then at the end, if we've got some time, I'll think about doing a Q&A. Hi, Megan. Thank you so much for the raid and setting me off on a good start here. We're a little bit early for when I wanted to start the show. I've been advertising it at 7:30, so I think I'm just going to fill in for a little bit, just vamp it a bit. I'm still really early in my transition, so I'm really excited that another great benefit of this show is going to be a video log of my transition. I'm hoping to start hormones soon, so like I said, this will be a good video and audio documentary of my transition. This project's about 44 years in the making. It's been a long time for me to come out and to identify as trans and all of that stuff. But as soon as I did, and as soon as I got through some of my major hurdles, I really wanted to do something like this to help other people like me, because I went through so many struggles. I had so much fear, and I really wanted to share my story, because I feel like no matter how many times I hear somebody else's story, there's always something about it that really resonates with me and really helps me. So I really wanted to do this, and I was so grateful to be able to find Twitch and have this where I can do a live show. I can have people that are interacting. So I love having you guys here in the chat. Please go ahead and send in any questions you have or make any comments along the way. The lovely Katie Cat Girl will be modding today, so watching out for trolls. I'm assuming that a show named The Transgender Show will probably get its fair share of trolls. So she'll have her little whack-a-mole mallets out and taking care of all of that. My guest tonight is no stranger to most of you. I met her through this Twitch universe. MainlyMaddison has agreed to be my first victim, basically. And not only that, I owe her a great deal of gratitude, because she's already done this show 3 times, because I had to try and work out the bugs. So I've essentially, this will be the 3rd time I've interviewed her for about an hour. She's strange, but not a stranger. Oh, Peach. You're glad she stepped away for a little bit. Oh my God, Megan, thank you so much. Oh, you're so wonderful. Oh, that was so unnecessary. I did set up a merch store, and I do have something fun. I've been following Sticker Mule for a while, and every couple weeks they have a great deal that they've got. Oh, thanks, Mirror Dubs, for the follow. And so this last week, it was these acrylic charms. So it's essentially just one of their stickers inside acrylic, but I made a cute acrylic Transgender Show logo heart. And I've set up 2 price points for that. The $3, which is pretty much the cheapest, where I can, get a little bit off the top of it. And then there's also a $5 option if you're feeling really generous. Still got a little bit of butterflies, but I'm sure we'll work it out once we get in and get Maddison here. Once I get her on the hot seat, I'm sure I'll feel a lot better about it. So, yeah, I guess to go a little bit more into some of my story, when I first started to come out, I found a transgender meetup group. And at that point, I was identifying as a cross-dresser. I had kind of just gotten there. I had been seeing a therapist for 2 years, I think, before I could even talk to her about it. Like, that's how closeted and afraid to admit it I was, and just afraid of it in general. So I found this group, and it was great. And the thing is that I was absolutely freaking out when I went to go to the first meetup, because I was just afraid that I was going to be a fake, right? It was a transgender group, and here I am just a cross-dresser. So I thought, like, yeah, they're going to see me as just this total fake, and they're going to think that I don't belong here. So I was absolutely freaking out. But then when I actually went, of course, it was the full spectrum. It was people. I mean, there were a couple people that were presenting as male there, that they weren't even dressed up, all the way to someone who was starting hormones. And so it was great, and I felt welcomed. But actually, pretty quickly after being part of the group, maybe about a month or two, it got to be too much. Because, again, I was having a really hard time identifying and dealing with some of the stuff that was going on in my head and some of the changes. So I stepped away for a good few years, 3, probably 4 years. And it wasn't until this year that I started to seek out, like through Instagram, other trans women. And then I found Megan and found this Twitch universe and the Transvengers. And that has really helped me a lot. Having that community again is, I'm sure you all know because you're all here, how massive and important that is in dealing with your own internal struggles. Welcome, MainlyMaddison. You can hear the thunderous applause in the background.
Hi, friends.
Maddison, how and when did you get involved with the Transvengers?
Ooh, okay. I probably found Megan in October or so. And I didn't know who she was. I don't remember how I found her. I really don't.
Just some rando on the internet.
Yeah, like it was just, I got on Instagram to kind of document my 1 month. Every month I took a picture of my transition. And she went live on Twitch in December of 2019. And I think I'm her first sub and first follower. I'm not real sure, but I think that's accurate. And
so you've been a big supporter of hers from the beginning. That's amazing.
Yeah, I have. And it was just because I identified with her story. And what she went through was kind of similar to what I went through. And then especially following the other Transvengers, Victoria Maximus, Michaelaville, and Maiden Ariana, I identified with them a lot, different pieces of their story. And that's how I got involved, and I ended up being asked to mod Megan's channel. Thank you, Genebra. You're the reason I'm a mod here on Megan's channel. And then from there, went to Tori and Ari and Transvengers. And I've just been really lucky. I was around at a point that was helpful for them, and I will appreciate that forever. Because I don't feel like I did anything special for them. I just tried to do my best. And so I feel very fortunate to be a part of the Transvengers group, to get to mod these amazing women that inspire a whole lot of people on multiple platforms. And that's it. That's kind of how I got involved with this.
That's great. Yeah, I feel like the Transvengers show came along at a great time for both of us. Is this the first transgender community you've been a part of? First LGBT community you've been part of?
Yeah, it is. I had actually been on Twitch for about 13, 14 months before Megan got on. But Megan's Twitch and her Instagram was very much the first time that I was involved in the transgender community. Posting my monthly update photos. I had a few people that noticed and looked and liked, and that was great. But it really wasn't until I met Megan, and she actually promoted one of my posts, that kind of took off a little bit, and I got more involved and more active, helping the people that I can help in the way that I know how to help.
Mm-hmm. Well, that kind of covers my next question. So, what was your background like? Let's dig into your history a little bit. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I went to church every single Sunday in the morning, and at night I went to church on Wednesday. And my parents went to church on Monday to do visitation. So it was a very, very conservative kind of background for me, for sure.
How would you say your childhood was, just kind of generally?
My family was extremely conservative. We very, very much were conservative. Um, Obviously, as I said, we went to church a whole lot. We were in church more often than we weren't in church. And so me, I grew up with the idea that alternative lifestyles were not okay. They were not acceptable. You didn't even kind of consider that sort of lifestyle because it wasn't acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't all right to feel that way, so you just didn't.
Yeah.
But for me, it was for sure. I remember the moment. In sixth grade, we were getting ready to go to middle school the next year, and so we had to pick electives that we wanted to do, right? And a whole lot of girls in my class were picking cheerleading. And on our lunch break, if you got finished with lunch, you could go outside and just play. And when that happened, they were going outside and they were working on their tumbling and their cheerleading and everything like that. And I remember that was sixth grade. I was 11 years old. And I remember thinking, I want to be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be in that group. I want to be one of the girls.
How was being part of a really religious family? How did that affect your transition once these pieces started to fall into place for you?
It took a very long time. It took an extremely long time because as kids we have foundation stones in our minds that you're supposed to live a certain way, you're supposed to do a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're growing up and this is how your parents tell you you're supposed to live and act and be, then those become a foundation stone. And so for a long time for me, fitting in to that was a foundation stone. And that meant that as a good Christian man, then I should be in love with Jesus, and I should be going to church every week, and I should find a wife, and we should start a family, and I should want to be the provider of the family. And there's a lot of things that go with the expectation of a conservative Christian household. And it wasn't me.
It just doesn't fit, right?
Yeah, it wasn't my life. I didn't really want to go to church from about the time I was in 8th or ninth grade. I was kind of over it. I thought I was just going because I was expected to go. My parents made me go. I was singing the songs because, hey, we're all singing, let's do it, yay, this is super fun. And I listened to the sermon because my parents were my ride, so I couldn't really leave until that was over.
Captive audience.
Yeah, I didn't really have a choice in the matter. And so I spent a lot of time trying to be the person that my Southern Baptist, because that's what it is, chat. I was Southern Baptist. my Southern Baptist upbringing taught me to be. Yeah, it's very ingrained in you.
Mm-hmm.
These things that you're supposed to do, and anything outside of that is not accepted, and so it's very scary, emotionally and mentally, especially to break yourself away from what the norm is
Mm-hmm.
for that sort of household.
Yeah, and it sounds like you were kind of coming to this realization of, maybe church isn't fitting with me, and you were seeing these things with like the cheerleader squad and things that you were starting to identify with. So was that about, sixth grade, a little bit later than that? Is that kind of when you started to realize that you really were different, that there really was something kind of fundamentally different that wasn't matching with that ideal from the church?
Sixth grade was the first time that I had a thought that I was different.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, most of the boys in sixth grade are not identifying with the girls who want to be cheerleaders. But you push that aside. Your upbringing tells you to push that aside. And then in ninth grade, I got caught by my parents. I was working for my dad at the time at a sporting goods store, and they had cheerleading uniforms, and I took one home one time.
Mm.
And my mom found it, and I was confronted with a skirt and asked why I had it, which in ninth grade, that would have been 1999. I didn't understand what transgender was. That wasn't really a word that we used at that point. That
I can't even remember when I became aware of the word transgender. Actually, now that you mention that.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't in 1999 for me, for sure. And when that confrontation happened, I obviously didn't want to talk about it. I was very embarrassed. As a good Christian boy, I was quite embarrassed.
A certain someone has asked, do you still wear cheerleader uniforms? And if so, are there pictures? Asking for a friend, of course. And I'll give you one guess who that was that asked that one.
Well, I already sent that person a picture of a cheerleading skirt and asked what color they would prefer, so
okay.
They answered that, and I think that's all we got to say about that.
Okay, asked and answered. All right, there you go. A little bit of vagary, but there are pictures out there. When did you finally first identify as trans? Was that really recently?
It was pretty recently. I went through a couple of relationships that I thought were going to end in marriage. Both of them we had talked about marriage. One, we had picked a ring out, and we were living together, and then that ended. And I never could quite figure out why that had happened. Like, it didn't quite make sense to me. Like, well, I mean, this seemed really good. We were doing pretty good together, and this stuff happened. And it wasn't until last June that I realized it was because I was trying to be in a relationship as a man. And that's why it wasn't working. I wasn't a man in a relationship. I was a girl in a relationship. And I wasn't willing to be honest with the other person about that. Yeah, because I wasn't ready to accept myself as trans until last year. Because that meant giving up a pretty big lifetime of, for me, religious belief. I had to give up a lot of my religion to accept who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really difficult thing to do when it's a foundation stone. That's very, very hard.
Well, it's such a big
But
part of your
once
story, yeah.
Yeah. My dad has been amazing since I came out. He calls me the correct name pretty much every time. He's still struggling with the pronouns, but that's okay. That's not a big deal. We're not even a full year in, so that's not a big deal. Um, my mom refuses to use my correct name or pronouns, but she's the one who got physically violent with me when she found out I was trans. So I'm trying not to expect too much out of that one. But
that's hard.
It could be a lot worse for me. It could be way, way worse for me, and it's not. And so I try to always appreciate the situation that I'm in, even if it's not my favorite situation. Obviously, I would love my mom and dad to both just be like, "This is great. We love you. We're gonna call you the right name. We're gonna use your pronouns, and everything is gonna be fine. We just want you to be happy." But it's okay. It's not a big deal, and I think that's where a lot of trans people have to get, especially at the beginning of their journey,
Mm-hmm.
is accepting that things aren't going to happen in the time frame that we want them to. That's just not how this works. That's not how life works. At the same time, I think we don't have any idea how important it is for our parents to give up their child. One of the things my mom said was, "I feel like my son is dying."
Yeah.
I feel like I'm losing my son. And that's hard for me to understand, for sure, because it's like, yeah, but you have a daughter, so it doesn't really make any difference. It's not a big deal. I don't know why you're focusing on the gender part of it. But also, I didn't carry a kid inside me for 9 months, and I didn't raise that kid and make sure that kid stayed alive and love that kid who was a male for 33 years. I didn't have to do that. So I'm trying to do my best of not judging her for me being upset, because I'm definitely upset.
Mhm.
It's extremely hard for me to know that I'm being misnamed and misgendered on purpose.
Yeah.
That sucks. That's really shitty. It's shitty to feel that way, but I also don't know where she's coming from at all, because I've never been in her shoes. I still have a cordial relationship with my mom. Like, we still see each other and we still talk and everything, but I know that I'm going to be misnamed.
Mhm.
If she texts me, she's gonna use my old name. I don't really like saying dead name, because we're not dead. We're the same person, but she's gonna use my old name. She's gonna use my old gender, and there's definitely gonna be a point for me where I say I'm done.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna accept this anymore. Me and my sister talked about that yesterday, for well over an hour, about how it hurts me that happens, and how long you let it happen before you end a relationship with a parent. But I think that should be up to everybody individually.
Mhm.
You have to decide that for yourself, and that's what my sister said, was you have to figure that out on your own. And if you do get to a point where you think, this has been a long enough time, that this is enough, and if they can't respect me, then they can't be in my life, then you should do that. Absolutely.
But-
But until you're there, leave it open.
Mhm.
Let them come to terms with things themselves, just like we had to.
Yeah.
It took me 34 years to come to terms with myself, and expecting a parent who's been around for every single day of those 34 years to come around in 6 months, 1 year, that's a little silly. This is not a decision to take lightly. This is something that you need to think about for a long time. You really need to consider your relationship with your friends and family or parents or whoever it is that you hold very close. And if you do get to a point that you're not okay with the way that they're treating you and how they're accepting you, then you definitely should do something about it. And that's going to be different for all of us. But don't go into something. I know within the first like 3 months of me transitioning, I was getting upset that my mom wasn't saying the right name, and I just want to be like, I'm done. I'm not going to talk to you ever again. You suck. But that's just not the way to do it.
So are you fully out at this point with everyone? And I mean, in the majority of aspects of your life, I guess everyone's like kind of a...
So I came out to a lot of people individually last July. On August 19th of last year is when I came out publicly on Facebook to everyone and just told them who I was. I started taking hormones on August 22nd, so just a few days later. And I've been mostly out at work since I came out publicly on Facebook. There's still days, obviously, where I just kind of dress however I want. I don't try to dress overtly feminine. And a lot of days recently, I don't wear makeup because there's nothing to do at work. I'm going to watch YouTube most of the day, so what is the point? You know how we all like to used to say that we put on makeup for ourselves and not other people? Quarantine absolutely proved that that's a load of bullshit. Because none of us were putting on makeup every single day of quarantine like, I do this for myself.
There's always a bit of show in it, right? And when you don't have anybody to show off to...
What's the point there? I mean, come on. I know I'm pretty. I want everybody else to know.
So what are some of the significant events from when you came out? Who is somebody that has supported you that you were surprised by? That you weren't expecting to be behind you, or at least as much as they have been?
There wasn't a whole lot of people when I came out that I thought weren't going to support me. There's some people who don't support me that I thought would, but not really the other way around so much. I think all of us have that same sort of fear that no one is going to support us. Like, every single person is just going to be like, wait, what? And almost, for me, anyways, I don't want to speak for anybody else's experience, but for me, most of the people were like, cool, that's awesome, I'm super happy for you. So there really wasn't anybody who I thought was going to support me that didn't. Again, there were other way around, but there wasn't anybody that I thought I'm gonna really talk to them, and they're gonna be cool with it, and then they absolutely weren't, except my mom. So,
timeline. Where would you say you are in your journey right now? How far along?
I guess as far as where I kind of envision myself mentally. Maybe I'm halfway to that point. There's still definitely some things physically that I want to see be different. There's more things mentally that I want to see be different. But at the same time, I think, kind of like we've talked about earlier, if you go into a transition with a whole lot of expectations, you're probably going to be disappointed. Because all of our transitions are different. There are our own transitions, and nobody's is going to be the same. So if you look at these people on social media or on Twitch or whatever, wherever you see these people that you admire and you look up to, if you look at their transition and their journey and say, I should be here at this point, you're probably going to be sad. Where I personally want to be, I'm probably about halfway where I would like to be.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I don't think that it's one of those 1 year is my halfway. I think the second half of where I want to be is going to take much longer than the first half.
I was so happy to hear Ariana, and that's Maiden Ariana on Twitch and on Instagram, for those of you that want to follow her. She said that it was the hormones that did the stuff that got her that got her almost all the way there, or pretty much most of the way there, like did the most significant thing, and then the surgeries were just icing on the cake. You know, you get to a point in your transition where there are some questions that you really start to need to answer, and it kind of starts to freak you out. And so, like I said, it really helped me to hear Ari say that it was the hormones that did everything for her that she was hoping for, and then deciding to do the surgeries was just sort of an icing on the cake and completed the package that was what she wanted.
If you start a transition with your goal being that you want to pass as female, you're going to fail. That is not the goal of transitioning. That is not what you should look for. I have a hard time with that, a lot.
Yeah,
really hard time with that. Exceptionally hard time with that, because we all want to pass. We all want to just go out in the world and be accepted as women, and everybody just sees us as a woman. That might not happen, and that's okay. It's about loving who you are and loving the life that you're living. And one thing that even Ari has said is surgeries that's not what's going to make you happy. If you're not happy before a surgery, you're not going to be happy after it.
Mm-hmm.
So figure out how to be happy inside yourself, and that may take a lot longer than any kind of physical transformation that you're going to make, whether it's through hormones or surgeries or whatever, however you're going to make that transformation. The transformation in yourself and in your heart and mind is what's going to be the most important part of anyone's transition.
What are you most trying to work on about yourself in your transition?
Being totally honest, it's my sexuality. It wasn't something that was ever in question for me before I started hormones. And it's something that is definitely a question for me since I've progressed through hormones.
Interesting. I've told myself that sexuality, my sexual preference, isn't a hindrance to starting HRT. Like, I tell myself I'm not afraid of my sexual preference changing. We'll see how that actually plays out. How have you found that?
I don't think I was afraid of it before I started hormones, but I didn't think it would change. Like 100%, I did not think it was going to change. I have a single gay friend, and before I started hormones, he was like, pretty confident you're gonna be gay by the end of this. And I was like, you can shut your mouth. You can shut up right now. And as I progressed through hormones, it's like, he might have been right a little bit. A little bitty bit. But I have definitely found, because especially coming from a religious background, there's always that thought in the back of your mind that sexuality is a choice. that you do decide who you are attracted to, and that's a very hard thing to let go of, especially as a religious foundation stone. And once I started HRT and I just started having feelings about things, it was like, oh wow, no, I didn't wake up this morning going, really feeling that way. Really feeling that way a whole lot. It just happened. It was just a thing that happened.
I think that's another thing that bolsters our argument that, like, you really can't expect anything out of your transition. You just have to let it be what it is.
You can't.
And you have to accept everything about yourself and your body and what happens as it happens, and cut yourself so much slack.
Like, especially sexuality-wise, I would have pushed against how I feel right now, like, extremely hard in my past life. Like, I would have absolutely just been like, no way, no chance, that's not a thing. I'm never gonna feel that way. I don't want to feel that way at all. This sucks. Like, bleh. And now it's just like, I don't care. Like, I love a certain person, and whatever that means in a sexuality type of way, I don't care. Like, I love them, and I've kind of found that's really all that matters, is how I connect to another person. And if I connect to them in a way that it is good for me and makes my life better, then that's the most important part of it. So, you know, sexuality be damned.
Yeah. What were some of your biggest breakthroughs in self-acceptance and understanding who you are as a trans woman along your journey?
There's two for sure I can think of, like, right off the bat. The first was going to get women's clothes for the first time. I knew I had lost a ton of weight since I had come out. I had to go get new jeans. Like, I didn't have a choice, had to go get new jeans. But I went to Old Navy during the day on my lunch break and immediately just walked to the women's section, bought a couple of pair of jeans, and I went to the fitting room, made sure they fit. The first couple of pairs didn't. Went back, got another couple of pair of jeans.
Wow.
Like, didn't give a poop. There was multiple women around me, like, not looking at me because they didn't give a They're not looking at me. They're buying their own damn jeans. They don't care. And so once I got the sizes, and I think I went from getting the jeans to going to the fitting room like 3 times and trying them on, and then going to the register by myself, paying for them. And I remember I was terrified when I went to pay it for them. Like, it was a guy that was checking me out, and I was like, oh, he's gonna be like, why are you buying women's jeans? He's gonna ask me the question specifically, like he's gonna be the one person in my entire life at a register who's been like, why are you buying these clothes? That's never happened. That's never happened to any of us. Nobody's ever gone to a register buying either their preferred gender or their expected gender clothes, and the person at the register is like, why are you buying these gender of clothes? That's never happened.
And yet 3 years in, I was still afraid of that. Like, you know?
We're terrified of it. Like, we're so scared. The first time, for sure,
Yeah.
I was terrified. No one cares. They're not watching you in any way. So that was the first time that I ever, like, put myself out there and was like, okay, I'm going to go do this on my own.
When was the first time? Have you ever told anybody that you were shopping for yourself in the women's section?
No.
When you were kind of presenting mail? No? That was something that I did.
I never
that was
had anybody ask me. Well, that's not true.
Well, you're lying on my show. I've got 2 rules. You can't watch the chat, and you can't lie to me. All right?
Way before I ever came out, way before I even knew that I was trans, I knew that I liked women's clothing. And so I had ordered something online, didn't fit, I knew that I could go to the store and exchange the size. So it took like 3 weeks for me to be like, oh, I'll go to the store. And I'll just tell them it's for my girlfriend. This will be fun. Just be like, my girlfriend or the world size. It's not like they were going to ask. Like they were going to give a shit at all.
They're just trying to get you the hell out of there, right?
Yeah, they wouldn't have if I hadn't brought it up. And so gave back the clothes that I ordered that didn't fit. Went over to find the same things that might fit because I kind of knew what size might fit. And a woman walked by and she's like, I'm pretty sure you'd look better in the red. And I was like, I thought I was going to pee myself. I was just like, they know. They know.
They all know. They've known the whole time.
And of course they didn't. Somebody just made a comment. But I think that's just emblematic. I think about how all of us feel like we think that that people are watching us. They're paying attention to us. They're not. Like I don't know how to express that to people in their transition, like especially early when you're trying to do things on your own. People aren't watching you. People aren't paying attention to you. They don't care what you're doing. And that's not to be callous, like people don't care about you, but they don't. When you go to a store, when you're going to buy things, even if it's just groceries, nobody's paying attention to what type of milk you just got. Nobody cares. And I think if all of us just kind of accepted that earlier in our transitions, that we would get a lot more accomplished.
Let's get to some of the questions that will some more questions that will help other younger trans people or closeted trans people. What do you most wish people understood about being trans?
It's not a choice. I absolutely wish people realized more that it was not a choice. I don't think any of us would, if we could choose, none of us would wake up tomorrow and go, you know what? I want to be ostracized. I want to be discounted. I want to be a target of violence. I want to be someone that the law considers is an other. I want to be somebody that school districts, when I'm a kid, think are pervert. I don't think any of us would choose this. But I think that's what we have to all accept, is that we didn't. We didn't choose this. This is who we are. This is how we are. This is how we feel. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
We're all valid. We're all worthy. We all deserve to have a happy life. No, we didn't choose this. But this is who we are, and we're okay.
Do you have any other advice? I think you've covered a lot of great advice pieces here for young or closeted trans people. But any closing thoughts on advice?
Do things at your own pace. That's probably the best advice I could give any person who is thinking about transitioning or who has started transitioning. Do it at your own pace. We're going through something that no one else has experienced in the way that we're going to experience it. Because no one else has the same story that we have. All of our stories are our own. So don't compare yourself to other people. Don't worry about where they were in a transition at a certain point. Don't worry about how they looked at a transition, or how they looked during a transition, or how they looked after a transition. Don't worry about other people. if you find inspiration in their story, then take that and internalize that and appreciate that for what they could give you. But do things in your own time. Then that's good enough. That's what matters most. You matter most. You're the most important person in your own life. Live that way.
Who's someone that you look up to and still kind of follow, and who are your current inspirations in the community?
That starts with Megan. That starts with Meganbound, for sure. But I would not be in my transition where I am without her. I really would not, because even though I don't remember how I found her, I identify with her story. And that's one thing that I think that you should look for. If you're trying to find an inspiration on social media, look for somebody whose story you identify with. That's what's important. Not how popular they are, but how they impact your own life. And a lot of things that it seems like she's kind of gone through, I've gone through too. Victoria Maximus, especially, we have gone through very, very similar religious backgrounds. That have, our stories line up a lot religiously in what we've had to deal with in our transitions. So she's been very important for me as well. Somebody who has been important, probably one of my first people that I followed was Erica, I think, on Tumblr. When I very first came out, within a couple of weeks of coming out, I got on Tumblr to find people that I could relate to, and Authentic Erica was one of them. And I followed her on Tumblr. I moved with her to Instagram, and she's been very inspirational for me. Somebody at the very, very, very beginning. And I don't follow quite as much anymore, but somebody who the first part of my transition was very influential was Kayla Ward. On Tumblr was Kayla Autumn Ward. On Instagram is Kayla Ward. She's pretty far through her transition, which is one of the reasons that I don't follow her quite as much right now, because I find people who are a little closer to where I am. Just for a little bit more personal part of it. But she was very important for me at the very beginning. Just to see somebody who had gone through all of these steps and had come out the other side as somebody who is just living a true life and has their life together. This year she is trying out for the WNBA. She's going to be the first trans woman to ever try out for the WNBA.
That's wonderful.
And so I'm really stoked for her. I hope that goes well for her. But yeah, those are the people. Obviously through Megan and then Tori, I found Ari and I found Mika. But yeah, I would say for my transition, Meganbound has been the most important person in my life.
That's wonderful. Again, I can't thank you enough for being here and being willing to be my first guest on the show. No matter what happens with the show, no matter where it goes, you will always be my first guest. You'll always be the one who started this off, and I can't thank you enough for that.
Absolutely. I'm very honored to be your first.
Try really hard not to get emotional.
Yeah, y'all, I'm tearing up right now, but I have a lot of eyeliner on, so I gotta chill with that.
Okay, so thank you all for watching. Thank you for your questions, and tune in next Monday to watch my good friend Ellen Ford.